Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video. Today I am doing my first official mock draft before the NBA draft that is this Wednesday. My second one, I'm doing two before the draft comes out. My second one is going to come out either Tuesday night or Wednesday, the day of the draft. And it is going to be my official mock draft that I have during my live stream up. That is just a little bit of spoiler. I am live streaming the NBA draft with some of my friends Wednesday night, going live right when the draft coverage starts. So be sure to tune in, leave a like, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And let's get started. Here we are. The Atlanta Hawks are the first team on the clock this year. And the Atlanta Hawks got lucky in this draft lottery. I think they had like the 7th or 8th best odds to win the lottery because I don't think they were in the play-in unless I'm tripping. But for the first overall pick, there were talks, or I have seen that there's talks that the Spurs are going to trade up for the pick to pick number one for the second year in a row, but I don't think that that's going to happen. And then all three of these guys have been in talks for the first overall pick with Atlanta, basically since they were told that they had the first overall pick. Zachary Rizashea is probably the guy that's going to end up getting picked. I've seen a lot that's saying that they're going to go with either Sarr or Donovan Clingan. I think Clingan's actually the second most likely guy to go to Atlanta. Zachary Rizashea, though, let's see if they have a scouting report, because this is who I am going with for the Atlanta Hawks here, first overall. This mock draft, I'm just thinking of who I think that who is like most likely to go there. And then on my official mock draft on Tuesday or Wednesday, that's gonna be the one where I'm like going like taking some shots, making some trades, thinking about who could go where. Can't be more than a 3-and-D guy right now. Not great body control or change of direction. Been in a shooting slump. Defense is very strong, and that's why he's still a lotto pick. That's in May, though. Comp is Brandon Ingram with more defense. That is who the Hawks will go with here. I think that he's basically just got the ceiling of like a DeAndre Hunter, who the Hawks already have on their roster. Maybe like a DeAndre Hunter and Matisse Thybulle mixed together. Because I don't think that Rizashea is a great basketball player. I think he might end up being a bust. Everyone's saying that this is going to be like the 2013 draft this year. And I think if that's the case, the best case scenario for Zachary Rizashea is to end up having a career like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I don't think anyone in this class is like Anthony Bennett bad, but there's no superstar level talent in this class unless Matas Buzelis or some of the other guys we'll be talking about later in this class end up turning out being great. Next up, we have Alex Sarr out of France. He played in the NBL in Australia this last season. He has shades of Evan Mobley, Nick Claxton, and Kai Jones. The first two great defenders. Evan Mobley was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversations a couple of years ago. Claxton is a very underrated defender. He's talked about as being one of the best interior ones in the NBA, and he's a great rebounder. Kai Jones is just a really good athlete. He hasn't had much success in the NBA, but that is who Washington will take if he's still available at 2, unless some team comes up and is offering like tons of future draft capital and stuff for that second overall pick. Then I think Washington, like, no doubt will take Alex Sarr at number 2. He was thought to be the number 1 overall prospect in this class for a long time, and then it ended up becoming that Zachary Rizashea is probably going to the Hawks. So I think it's almost inevitable that the Wizards will take Alex Sarr. So that's the first 2 picks there. Next up, the Houston Rockets, who have a very interesting team. They have a great mix of young talent and older veterans like Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Steven Adams, all them. And they're going to have to pay Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, and all them coming up. So I don't think Fred VanVleet's going to last out the rest of this 2-year contract. I think he'll be let go on that after this next season because he has a player option. And I think because of that, they're going to draft a guard to try to go out and replace him in Reed Sheppard. Sheppard's a really good player out of Kentucky. He's only 6'1", so he's really small for a 2-guard, but he was a great shooter, 54% from the field, and he shot a lot of threes, if I'm not mistaken. 19 years old, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists a game. He was not mostly the primary scoring option, primary ball handler in the games I watched of Kentucky. Let's see what they compare him to. They compare him to Jason Kidd and Derek White. I could really see him being a Derek White, just a go-to good role player that can fit in any offense in the league and help them become a championship contender. Reed Sheppard is a great guy for Houston to pick up, especially if they will be parting with Fred VanVleet. Next up, the San Antonio Spurs. And this is another pick that everyone's been mocking forever. Stephon Castle, a really good perimeter defender, also can get his shots, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists on 47% shooting as a freshman on the national championship team. He wasn't even the main scoring option. I'd say that that's either Clayton or probably, what's his name? Tristan Newton, maybe even Cam Spencer. But he most definitely was not the most number one scoring option, and he still got his buckets. He still had a great season. Next up, Detroit here. The Detroit Pistons at number 5. This is a pick where it could go a lot of ways. I've seen Dalton Connect go here in a couple mock drafts. So the Pistons at 5, I've seen 6 Rings of Steel in his mock draft with one of the people from the Deep 3 pod, I think that's what it's called. They went with Dalton Connect here, 5th overall. I personally think that the Pistons are probably going to lean more to Matas Buzelis just because he's super high upside. He's kind of like a better Connect who can also play the power forward if he needs to. But Buzelis is much more versatile, connects more of a 2-3 only. Buzelis can play the 1 through the 4 and maybe even the 5 as a small ball if he can develop some strength and rebounding a little bit. Do not want to reload the site. So I think that they are going to go with Matas Buzelis here. And I think Buzelis, I don't know how the fit will work perfectly alongside Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, but I think if you're Detroit, they're in a spot where they're so bad and they're not going to get any free agents that they just have to go best available, best upside. And if Buzelis ends up working out, he could end up being a great wing on the Detroit Pistons in the future. That's a do-it-all wing, rebounding defense, scoring, everything. So I think that's who they're going to go there. Just bet on his upside. Next up, 6th overall, we have a trade here. Charlotte will be trading down. The 6th overall pick, the Chicago Bulls are trading up here with him still available at 6. And I think this is actually going to be a trade. It's going to be pick 6 and Mitchich. Actually, no, let's not do Mitchich. Let's do Nick Richards. For who could the Bulls give up? For hold on, let me think of something real quick. Okay, we're doing for Javon Carter, Julian Phillips, and it says that they own their own 2030 first. So that is a trade. Pick 6, Nick Richards for Javon Carter, Julian Phillips, and a 2030 first. I think that the Hornets would like the upside in Julian Phillips. Javon Carter just brings a good defensive backup guard. And the Bulls trade up to get Donovan Clingan out of UConn. The only thing about that trade is the Hornets may not have to give up Nick Richards in that deal. I just gave him in there just because I feel like he might get traded to the Bulls in a trade like that, and then they would most definitely trade Vucevic if they have Clingan, Richards, and Vucevic. But the Bulls get the guy that they've been looking at for a long time. Next up, 7th overall, the Portland Trailblazers are on the clock. And I think that Portland will most definitely go Dalton Connect if he's still available here at 7. They don't need any guards. They need a good scoring wing, and that's exactly what Connect is. Great athlete, good scorer. 8th overall pick, the San Antonio Spurs. They're going to go with another guy that's been mocked to them for a very long time, Rob Dillingham out of Kentucky. A great shifty point guard that has a lot of upside as a scorer. The 9th overall pick, the Memphis Grizzlies. And I think this is where another trade happens. So I think that it will be pick 9 to Toronto for pick 19 Ochai Agbaji, and the Hornets will also be getting back Jalen McDaniels, who used to play there. So the Raptors, I think, trade up here, and they're going to be looking at either guards or wings. And I think the most appealing guy here to them is Ron Holland. Great upside, good athlete. He's just a good overall player, and I think that he would be a perfect fit right behind RJ Barrett, who could also play small ball power forward when needed. Next up, the Utah Jazz, and I think this is where Nikola Topic ends up potentially going. Actually, you know what? They don't have many wings. I think they go Cody Williams here. They bet on his upside, a former guy projected to go first overall in this draft. Cody Williams, the younger brother of Jalen Williams on the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's a great at getting to the basket. Good slasher, has shown a lot of potential with his ball handling and upside. He's got a lot of room for improvement, and I think that Utah could be great in developing him if they can do it right. Next up, the Hornets, and I think they go guard here, but two guard. I think if Charlotte was on the board here, this is the spot for Jacoby Walter, who has a lot of upside, but I could also see them going a big man since we just had them trade away Nick Richards. This is one of the tougher picks I've had to do so far. Um, Actually, you know what? I think they would go T. John Saloon out of France to be that backup power forward for Grant Williams. And since they're probably going to lose Miles Bridges this offseason, I don't know much about Saloon's game, but I've seen him hyped up a lot as a good scoring big man. Next up, the Thunder. I think that's who the Thunder would go if he was still available, is Salon out of France. But now with him not available anymore, following the Alex Caruso trade, which isn't even updated here, they don't have that in here yet. I think what the Thunder are going to be looking for is wing. I don't think that they're going to trade this pick. They could, but I think what they're going to end up doing is getting Tristan da Silva out of Colorado, a very old guy. He's almost 23. He'll be 23, I think, by the start of the season. 16-5 as a senior at Colorado. He's really NBA ready, and he's got a lot of potential to be a good 3-and-D wing in the NBA. Next up, the Kings. This is a very interesting team. I think they're going to go backup point guard since Keon Ellis has been better as the off guard, the two, sometimes even the three. I think the perfect player for this team is Devin Carter out of Providence. He's been hyped up a lot as a just a good player. I think his dad is Anthony Carter, who used to play in the NBA. 20 points a game as a freshman at Providence. He's a pretty good player. I think he's got one of the highest upsides in this draft. Next up, the Trailblazers, and I think Topic is going to end up falling out of the lottery because I don't think Portland would need another guard. They already have Malcolm Brogdon under contract, Scoot Henderson, Delano Banton, Anthony Simons, Shaden Sharp. They could go him and draft and stash him since he's likely out for this whole season, the whole upcoming season. But I think Portland would rather go a good power forward. And I think this is also where a guy like Kyle Filipowski could go. Filipowski is a great athlete, good rebounder, kind of has somewhat potential to be a guy like Chet Holmgren. He's not as talented with the ball. He's a little bit shorter, 16 points, 8 rebounds on 50% shooting. He's a pretty decent player. He's also got a pretty decent outside shot. I think he would be really good on that Portland team with the right kind of development. Next up, the Miami Heat. I really don't know who this team is going to get. I've been looking at like hidden gems for them. I think Jared McCain is the guy that a lot of people are saying they're going to be targeting with this pick. But I think personally, it's going to be a power forward probably, or a small forward that could play the four. Like maybe a Tyler Smith climbs all the way up the boards. But I think if I had to pick somebody, it would probably be a Jared McCain or a Jacoby Walter, somebody that I think that the Heat would like want to develop, and I think it's gonna be Jared McCain. I don't know for sure, but I think that's the guy that they're targeting in this draft. It's what I've been hearing a lot, and I think it makes a lot of sense too. Philadelphia, Nikola Topic still available, but they would not want to go with a guy at this point that cannot even play his rookie year, or at least most of his rookie year. I think this is where Jacoby Walter would go out of Baylor. Walter is a great athlete, good first step, good speed, can get open in the open floor, get good shots. 6'4", 198, good freshman year at Baylor, was one of the best freshmen in the Big 12 conference. The Lakers up next. This is a really tough pick to predict because they could trade down. They could do a lot of different things at this pick. And I think what the Lakers would be most interested in doing is grabbing another guard or another big man. Either one of those two, I think, would work the best. They're definitely not really in the market for another wing, small forward, power forward. I think maybe a Kello Ware would work really well alongside LeBron and AD. But I'm also looking at a Carlton Carrington or Isaiah Collier, and I think Isaiah Collier would actually be a very good fit on this team. He is pretty young, 19 years old, but if they could grab him and Bronny, get the backcourt from USC back together, that Lakers team could be pretty good next year. Collier is a potential replacement for D'Angelo Russell, former projected top 5 pick, ended up falling a ton after a weak freshman year, and I think he could end up being pretty good in the future. Next up, the Orlando Magic. Um, this is another just tough pick to predict. They have a very deep roster. They don't have any needs, any real needs. But I think they would go Carlton Carrington out of Pitt. He was a great freshman. 14 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Showed a lot of upside as a potential triple threat machine or triple double machine in the NBA. 6'3", 200-pound guard. He's got a really high ceiling. Next up, the Memphis Grizzlies. They traded down with the Toronto Raptors, and I think the perfect player for this team is Ryan Dunn, one of the best 3-and-D prospects we've seen in the NBA in a couple of years. He's a 6'6", 214 small forward out of Virginia who averaged 8 points and 7 rebounds a game on 55% shooting as a sophomore. He's got a lot of potential as a wing on defense, and they would have him, Smart, and Jaren Jackson Jr. That would be one of the better defensive teams in the league to surround Ja and Desmond Bane, who are minuses on the defensive end. Next up, Cleveland. And I think this could be where Nikola Topic goes. It's probably where I'm going to mock him. And actually, yeah, I will mock him here. I think he most definitely is going to fall. I don't like that people are still mocking him top 15, top 10, because he's not going to go that high if he's going to miss his whole rookie year, and he was already a questionable prospect before that. 21st overall, the New Orleans Pelicans. And I think this is another spot where there's going to be a trade. This is probably one of my more crazy trade ideas of the video, but I think the Spurs would be trading 48, not 35, 48 Keldon Johnson and CD Sissoko and a future Hawks pick for pick 21 and Dyson Daniels, who is a young guy on the Pelicans who has shown a lot of potential they want to keep. I think the Spurs are trading up for a third first round pick here. And I think the guy that they would want, they already got Dillingham and Castle. I think the guy that the Spurs would be targeting here is Kello Ware out of Indiana, a center who can stretch the floor a little bit, 16 points, 10 rebounds a game. He could kind of replace Zach Collins, make Zach Collins kind of expendable on the trade market this upcoming season. Next up, the Suns here at 22. I've been hearing from everything I've been reading that the player that they're basically going to take at this point is Tyler Kolek out of Marquette, 15, 8, and 5 as a senior, I think, at Marquette. 23rd overall, the Milwaukee Bucks here. This is a team that could probably use a center with Brook Lopez likely out the door, but I don't think that they're going to go Zach Edey. I think Zach Edey is going like second round. I don't care if he's ranked 16th best player in the draft. He is really overhyped. But Milwaukee could be a good team for him. I don't even know. You know what? Zach Edey to the Milwaukee Bucks, the senior big man out of Purdue, two-time National Player of the Year, 25 and 12. I think he would actually be a good fit, even if they kept Brook Lopez. Get two big body slow centers. But I think Edey would actually work on that team because he has a decent jump shot, especially from the mid range. New York Knicks, 24th overall. This is a pick that could go a lot of different ways, but I think that the smartest option here would just go Yves Missi out of Baylor. The big man, freshman, broke onto the scene this year, helped Baylor be pretty good this year. The Knicks again on the clock here. I think they have to go wing at this spot, and I think a good player for them would be Baylor Shireman out of Creighton. Shireman's a really good floor spacer, good athlete too. I saw him play right in front of me when I was at a Kansas State versus, I think he was from North Dakota or South Dakota, one of them. When they played him, he was a high flyer, good shooter, Great floor spacer, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists at Creighton as a senior. Creighton's been pretty good the last couple of years. He was always the best or second best player on those teams, with Trey Alexander being the best or second best as well. The Wizards here at 26. They drafted a big already. I think they have to go guard here. And I think they're going to be the team that takes a flyer on Juan Nunez, a guy that I've heard a ton of great stuff about, but I've also heard a ton of terrible stuff about. I think he's going to be a better defensive Ricky Rubio. And I know that that's kind of crazy to think that he is going to be Ricky Rubio with defense, but I have heard some great things about him, and I think that the hype is really legit with that guy. Next up, the Timberwolves. I think that this is where I think that the Timberwolves go Deron Holmes the second out of Dayton. He is in the green room. I don't know why he's in the green room because he's not projected to be a first round pick. He's projected to go late 30s, but 20 points and 8 rebounds a game on a Dayton team that's been consistently in the NCAA tournament while he's there. 6'8", 240 pounds. He could end up being the next Naz Reid. You never know. He's got a similar build, similar play style. And if they get a second Naz Reid, it might be over for the league. They would have a lot of bigs, but they would also have a lot of trade pieces with those bigs too. The Denver Nuggets here at 28. I think this is where Keyshawn George ends up going. He's a great project player. 8 points, 2 assists, 3 rebounds, 42% shooting, 6'7", 209 pounds. He was a freshman at Miami. He came off the bench for most of the year. He was not a great player. You can tell by the stats, but he was mostly just a good role player that backed up Matthew Cleveland, sometimes started alongside him, but he was a good player in his role. Next up, the Jazz. I think this is where Johnny Furphy finally comes off the board. A guy with great upside out of Kansas, an Australian wing, 9 points, 5 rebounds a game as a freshman. He wasn't great at Kansas, but the upside is real. So if they can get him and Cody Williams, they have the potential for a great backcourt with them and Keontae George. Next up, the Boston Celtics with the final pick of the first round, excuse me. I think this is where maybe Kashad Johnson goes, but I think the most realistic guy here is probably like a Jonathan Mogbo, or they say point guard is a severe need. I don't really know about that. Jalen Tyson would be another great player, or Cam Christie. You know what? I think Boston goes Jonathan Mogbo here out of the University of San Francisco. 14 points, 4 assists, 10 rebounds a game. He's not really a center. He's got a lot of positional versatility. He's only 6'6", but the 10 rebounds is legit. 64% shooting too. He plays like a big, but he can also, I think he played power forward and small forward a lot too at San Francisco. I think he's got a really high ceiling. Next up, the Toronto Raptors. They already drafted Ron Holland in the first round. Now here's the first pick of the second round for them. I think TJ Shannon goes first overall here. The senior, 22 years old, but 23 points a game. He's got a really high upside. Could be like the next Gary Trent, who the Raptors already have, but he is a free agent this year, so they could be getting his replacement there. The Utah Jazz back on the clock. I think this is where like a Kenneth Simpson's probably going to go, or maybe since Walker Kessler is expendable. Actually, you know what? That is a great fit. Adam Bona out of UCLA. He's a good fit on that Utah team, especially if Walker Kessler ends up getting traded. The Milwaukee Bucks. I think that the Bucks would be getting a guy that has. They're not going to be getting another upside guy because they already drafted Marjon Beauchamp for that reason a couple of years ago, and he did not work out. I think they're going to be going with an older guy like a Jalen Tyson out of Cal. I think he was just a senior this last season. It doesn't show his stats or anything, which is kind of weird, but I think he was just a senior. I know he averaged like 15 points a game or something. He wasn't great, but I've heard a lot of hype about him, so there must be something that teams love about him. Next up, the Portland Trailblazers. This is another just tough pick because they have so many just like playable guys on their team that I don't know what their needs really are, but I think they would be probably getting another guard. This is probably actually a team for Cam Christie, a guy that just burst onto the scene as a freshman this year at Minnesota. He's the younger brother of Max Christie on the Lakers. I don't know if he's a good shooter like Max is, but I know that he has a lot of upside. That's what I've been reading all day long. I've just been reading NBA articles, and that's something I've heard consistently. Next up, the Spurs. I think this is a good team for Tyler Smith out of the G League Ignite. He is only 19, I think, 6'9", 224. Going into the year, he was classified as a center. He ended up becoming a wing, and I think he's got a really good upside if he can just develop a solid ball handle. The Pacers are next on the clock, and I think for Indiana, they're just going to be trying to get a good role player, try to maybe replicate TJ McConnell or something like that. Um, actually Bobby Klintman. He is a good fit for this team because he can play the 3-4 or the 5. Good rebounder. He's in the NBL. He used to play at Wake Forest. That's where he played his freshman year. Then he left. He's actually he's a really good fit for that Indiana team. Good value at 36. The Timberwolves here at 37. Um, this is a tough team to really pick for because actually they're going to be losing Monte Morris and Jordan McLaughlin. So any one of these point guards would be a great fit for the team. I wonder if they would reach and go with like a Tristan Newton or a Reese Beekman since they're more NBA ready. But I think Kenneth Simpson ends up climbing up here to the Timberwolves. He's only 6 feet tall, but he's kind of like a Jordan McLaughlin type player. 20 points a game, 5 assists, but 6 rebounds. He's a great hustle guy. I know that. I watched Colorado's tournament game, and I watched a couple at the beginning of the year. It was always apparent that he was one of the hardest workers out there on the court. I think what I've been reading is he's also a good defender. I don't know that for sure. The Knicks, they have drafted Misi and Baylor Shireman. I think the best fit here is Kashad Johnson, a guy from Arizona that used to play at San Diego State when they made their championship run last year. He developed his game a lot more, and he could end up being one of the best role players out of this class. He's going here at 38th to New York in my mock draft. Next up, the Grizzlies. I think they're going to go another wing, probably a shooting guard, and I think they probably just go with like best available best upside, Justin Edwards out of Kentucky, who was originally projected to be one of the top picks in this class. One of the top recruits, went to Kentucky, kind of sucked, didn't really play much, and now he's trying to fight for a first round spot this year. The Trailblazers, this is a spot where they could just go like a developmental guy. I don't know who's texting me a lot. I think this is where they could just get like a guy that they can develop, and I think it's going to be a power forward. I think Ulrich Chomche, either if they draft and stash him or keep him, I think he would be a good fit on this Portland team. Next up, Philadelphia with the 41st overall pick. They already drafted Jacoby Walter, and they're going to be having a lot of open roster spots this season. I think they only have 6 guys on their roster going into free agency. I think Kevin McCullough, even though his health is kind of a question mark right now, I think he's a good fit for this Philadelphia team. I've been mocking him to them a long time this season, but mostly in the first round. I think he would be a good pick for them, though, in the second round if he's available. The Hornets, next up, I think they're going to go point guard, and I think A.J. Mitchell would be a good pick here. He's kind of a do-it-all point guard at UC Santa Barbara. 20 points a game on 50% shooting for a point guard is insane. The Heat, now they have Jared McCain, and I think power forward they really do need, so we're going to get them one here. I think they go Isaac Jones and try to develop him. He's got a really interesting backstory, which would probably be pretty cool to read about, but yeah, he's pretty good. We only have 27 seconds left here, so we're going to get Houston. Hurry up, please don't lag. Trey Alexander. I'm not even going to get to finish at all. We're going to get to pick 45 here, and then we're going to quit it. Please stay tuned for my next one next week. Who is even drafting? The Kings, Pacom Diet. This